Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are selling vastly different visions for this country's future, and you don't have to look any further than their campaign rallies to make that assessment. While Donald Trump is calling Kamala Harris dumb and low IQ and saying we're not going to have a country anymore unless he wins, Kamala Harris is making substantive critiques with Donald Trump's criminal behavior. And she's talking about actual laws that she would like to pass if she were to become president. So let's go ahead and take a look at her rally from this past weekend in Las Vegas, Nevada, and see what kind of vision that she's laying out for this country and what type of way she's differentiating herself from Donald Trump. And we'll go ahead and kick things off with her pointing out much of the criminal behavior that Donald Trump has engaged in. Let's go ahead and take a look.
But I've certainly been dealing with people like him my entire career. For example, as Attorney General of California, I took on one of our country's largest for-profit colleges that scammed students. Well, Donald Trump ran a for-profit college that scammed students. Remember that. As a prosecutor, I specialized in cases of sexual abuse. Well, Donald Trump was found liable for committing sexual abuse. As Attorney General, I held Wall Street banks accountable for fraud. Well, Donald Trump was just found guilty of fraud, 34 counts. All of this is to say, in this campaign, I will proudly put my record against his every day of the week. Every day of the week.
So I don't know how she could make things any more clear. This is the prosecutor versus the criminal. And she's using actual criminal activity that Donald Trump has engaged in. She's talking about defrauding people with Trump University. Talking about being held liable for sexual assault. And being found guilty of fraud, making him a 34-time convicted felon. The difference could not be more clear. And these are not nothing attacks. These are substantive. They are real. She's not lying. She doesn't have to call Donald Trump dumb. She's using his actual behavior to make the difference. Unlike Donald Trump, where we see at his latest rally, just calling her dumb, low IQ, making fun of her last name in some weird way. This is how it should be done. If you're going to point out the difference in character between you and your opponent, there should be some substance behind your arguments. So I'm really glad that Kamala Harris is pointing these things out in a real, tangible way. But let's go ahead and move on to more substance and like what types of policies that Kamala Harris would like to pass if she were to become president. We can go ahead and start things off by her solutions for the border and making sure that there is some sort of immigration reform for our southern border. Let's go ahead and take a look at what she had to say there.
We know our immigration system is broken, and we know what it takes to fix it. Comprehensive reform that includes, yes, strong border security and an earned pathway to citizenship. But Donald Trump doesn't want to fix this problem. He talks a big game about a lot of things. But he talks a big game about border security, but he does not walk the walk. Earlier this year, we had a chance to pass the toughest bipartisan border security bill in decades. But Donald Trump tanked the bill because he thought it would help him win an election. Well, when I am president, I will sign that bill into law.
I absolutely love that Kamala Harris is hitting Donald Trump on this issue because it's one of his greatest issues, I guess you could say. People, for some reason, trust Donald Trump on the border, and he wants to paint Kamala Harris as an open borders supporter, when that couldn't be farther from the truth. And she laid that out very clear right here. She acknowledges that we have a problem at the southern border, but we also have solutions to fix it. And Donald Trump stood in the way of bringing any of those fixes to the southern border. So I absolutely love that she's hitting him and hitting him hard on this issue. I think this is the exact right stance to take. Yes, we need more border security, but we also need a path to citizenship for those people who are already here. We need to make sure that we're getting asylum judges so we can adjudicate those cases more quickly. But let's go ahead and move on and talk about reproductive rights. This is going to be a big issue for voters this November. Let's remember that more than 60% of Americans do not agree that Roe v. Wade was overturned. So let's go ahead and listen to Kamala Harris address that issue.
Now, in more than 20 states, there is a Trump abortion ban. Many with no exceptions even for rape and incest. And be sure, if he were to win, he would sign a national abortion ban, which would outlaw abortion in every state, even Nevada. But we are not going to let that happen. Because we trust women. And when I am President of the United States and Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms, I will sign it into law.
So Kamala Harris doesn't have to use any hyperbolic statements. She doesn't have to talk viciously about this issue. She points to real things that have happened, real things that would occur under a Donald Trump presidency, and uses those substantively. This is the way to do it. She doesn't have to get down in the dirt with Donald Trump and throw insults across the aisle. No, she's talking about actual things that she would like to do if she were to become president. She wants to protect reproductive freedoms, and she would do that by signing a law. These are substantive things that we can carry forward with us to the ballot box. These are the things that Kamala Harris would fight for. On the other hand, we have Donald Trump, who the closest thing he gets to policy is like, I'm going to carry out mass deportations. And he talks about getting inflation down and rebuilding the economy, but there is no policy to back those things up. They're all just vacuous statements that don't mean a whole lot. But let's go ahead and move on, where she talks about implementing more laws to address voting rights and gun reform. These are things that are very popular with the American people. Let's hear her talk about that.
Each and every one of us. So we who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. And we who believe in the freedom to live safe from gun violence will finally pass an assault weapons ban, universal background checks, and red flag laws.
Again, she's using actual laws that she could pass if she were to become president. Universal background checks have 70 to 80% support in this country. Red flag laws have majority support in this country. I'm not exactly sure where the assault weapons ban stands. I'm not sure if I support that one. But she's pointing to actual policy solutions that she would try to pass if president. This is exactly what we should expect from people campaigning for the highest job in the land, right? We should want to know what type of laws, what type of policies, what type of rules and regulations they would fight for in the Oval Office. This should not be controversial. If you don't like the policies that Kamala Harris is proposing, then don't vote for her. But at least we have a good, solid understanding of what she would want to do if she were to become president. And then she goes back to defining her opponent. That's one of the main pillars of a presidential campaign. You need to let people know what they are up against, who they are up against. And there's a lot to work with when it comes to Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and listen to her talk about Donald Trump and how he would seek retribution if he were to become president again.
He said he will weaponize, essentially, the Department of Justice against his political enemies. And even called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States. Let us be very clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of President of the United States. Never again.
I am so glad that she brought this up at this rally. I don't know how many Americans knew about this or forgot about this, but Donald Trump absolutely did call for the termination of the Constitution to overturn the results of the 2020 election. And why, in what world does it make sense for us to have a candidate like that become president again? Why would we want somebody who wanted to suspend our Constitution become president? It makes absolutely no sense. And before that, she talked about how he would seek retribution and revenge and use the Justice Department to go after his political enemies. That is important stuff too. A second Trump term would be dangerous for a lot of people. It could be absolutely catastrophic. So I'm super glad that she pointed this out and really pointed out that Donald Trump should come nowhere near the White House ever again, because he tried to not only overturn the results of the 2020 election, which is one of the main pillars of our democracy, a peaceful transfer of power, but he also called for the termination of our Constitution, our governing documents. That is insane. And more importantly, and we hear this at every single Kamala Harris rally, is how she will govern for all Americans. And this is super important to bring up at every rally. So let's go ahead and listen to Kamala Harris talk about governing for everyone.
So look, we are together, we are running this campaign on behalf of all Americans. From red states to blue states, from the heartland to the coast. And when elected, we will govern on behalf of all Americans.
I think it is absolutely crucial that she says this every single rally. People need to know that she's not just fighting for her side. That is not what the president is supposed to do. The president is supposed to look out for all Americans. They're supposed to build a future for everyone, not just their side. Donald Trump uses vague terms like America will be great again for all races, colors, and creeds. But I don't know if I can buy it, because he spends most of his rallies attacking the left viciously with insults and hyperbole and falsehoods. That is not what we saw out of Kamala Harris in Vegas. She is using substantive critiques. She's pointing out the difference between her and her opponent, using actual criminal behavior that he engaged in, and talking about actual things that she would like to pass if she were to become president. So she did a really great job of defining her opponent and giving us something to vote for. So next time you watch a Trump rally, see if you can pick those things out from the things that he is saying. I challenge you to do so, and don't think you will be able to. Because the most we hear from him is demonization and dehumanization of immigrants, mass deportations, and then other vague statements about the economy and how everything's going to be great again if we drill, baby, drill. So I challenge you to go watch a Donald Trump rally and then watch a rally like this from Kamala Harris and see the actual difference. Make sure that we are informed when we go to that ballot box in November. So that's going to do it for me on this one, folks. If you got anything out of this video, if you could remember to smash that like button and hit subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. If you think I got something wrong, or if you disagree with me about something, feel free to drop a comment below. And if you want to see Trump's latest rally in Bozeman, Montana, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. And I will see you guys on the next one.